ขอต้อนรับทุกท่านกลับเข้าสู่งานอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะคะ Climate Finance Tracker 2025 นะคะท่านไหนที่ยังไม่ได้เข้าเว็บไซต์เราไปทดลองเล่นกับเครื่องมือนะคะลองดูนะคะแล้วก็สามารถดาวน์โหลดนะคะอีกครั้งหนึ่งสามารถดาวน์โหลดตัวไฟล์ PDF นะคะทั้งที่คุณธนิดา Presentation เมื่อเช้านะคะกับตัว Methodology หรือระเบียบวิธีนะคะช่วงต่อไปเราก็จะเริ่มงานเสวนานะคะงานแรกของวันนะคะเดี๋ยวหลังรับประทานอาหารกลางวันก็จะมีอีกวงหนึ่งนะคะวงช่วงเช้าก็จะเป็นวงที่ว่าด้วย Climate Mitigation นะคะการลดการปล่อยก๊าซเรือนกระจกนะคะโดยใช้ชื่อหัวข้อนะคะเป็นภาษาอังกฤษก็คือ taking stock and looking forward นะคะทบทวนเพื่อไปต่อนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นแน่นอนว่าเราต้องคุยกับผู้ที่อยู่ในภาคการเงินนะคะวันนี้เราได้รับเกียรติจากวิทยากรมากประสบการณ์นะคะหลายท่านด้วยกันนะคะแล้วก็แน่นอนว่าเราก็หวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งนะคะว่าบทสนทนาในวันนี้เนี่ยก็จะเป็นจุดเล็กๆนะคะที่เราคงต้องคุยเรื่องนี้กันอยู่เนืองๆนะคะก็เดี๋ยวจะขออนุญาตเชิญวิทยากรแต่ละท่านขึ้นสู่บนเวทีนะคะ I would like to invite our esteemed panelists to the stage. Please allow me to introduce นะคะ first คุณ Melinda Good นะคะ Division Director of Thailand and Myanmar from the World Bank ค่ะขอบคุณค่ะท่านเป็นผู้อำนวยการประจำประเทศไทยและเมียนมาจากธนาคารโลกนะคะท่านที่สองนะคะได้รับเกียรติเป็นอย่างยิ่งจากดรรุ่ง Mallikamas นะคะท่านเป็นรองผู้ว่าการด้านเสถียรภาพสถาบันการเงินจากธนาคารแห่งประเทศไทยนะคะต้องบอกว่าเป็นหัวเรือใหญ่เลยนะคะในการขับเคลื่อนเรื่องนี้ในประเทศไทยจากภาครัฐนะคะท่านที่3นะคะเราได้รับเกียรติจากดร.กรินทร์บุญเลิศวณิชท่านเป็นรองผู้จัดการใหญ่ธนาคารกสิกรไทยจำกัดมหาชนนะคะธนาคารที่ประกาศพันธกิจนะคะและเป้าหมายอย่างชัดเจนว่าจะเป็นธนาคารสีเขียวนะคะให้สมกับโลโก้ของธนาคารนะคะและแน่นอนท่านสุดท้ายนะคะดร.ยันยงไทยเจริญนะคะท่านเป็นประธานเจ้าหน้าที่บริหารสายงานวิจัยเศรษฐกิจและความยั่งยืนจากธนาคารไทยพาณิชย์จำกัดมหาชนนะคะธนาคารสีม่วงนะคะเป็นคู่แข่งนะคะกับปกติชาวบ้านก็จะบอกแบงค์เขียวแบงค์ม่วงนะคะแต่ว่าเรื่องนี้เราคิดว่าแข่งกันในทางที่ดีนะเป็น virtual cycle นะคะแข่งกันในทางที่จะขับเคลื่อน climate finance นะคะวันนี้สำหรับผู้ดำเนินรายการนะคะเราได้รับเกียรติเป็นอย่างสูงนะคะจากดร.วิทย์สิทธิเวคินนะคะจาก The Standard Wealth นะคะแล้วก็รายการพอดแคสต์ที่มีผู้รับชมทั่วประเทศไทยนะคะก็ขอเชิญดร.วิทย์เป็นผู้ดำเนินรายการแล้วก็จากนี้จะขออนุญาตส่งมอบเวทีให้กับดร.วิทย์นะคะขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณมากครับพี่ยุ้ยครับสวัสดีทุกคนนะครับ Good morning have a seat Well we have approximately 80 minutes today and I promise that we will not overspend it otherwise we produce emissions to the world So we need to stick to our commitments. The first 60 minutes will be discussion with the 4 representatives here. One is of course from the World Bank, another one is from Central Bank, and the 2 from the leading commercial banks here in Thailand to think about, well, where is Thailand right now as far as climate mitigation finance is concerned? What are challenges into the future? And many more questions. But first of all, can I ask Kun Melinda first?Well, as far as Thailand's climate finance is concerned, in global context, where are we actually?
Sorry, technical. Oh, there we go.
Okay, wonderful.
I think now it's working. Great. Great. Simple question you give me for the kickoff.No. Swadika, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Wit, and thank you, everyone, for having me here. I was intrigued by the first session, which actually, in a way, set out for us a pathway to use data for change. So let me talk briefly about that. I think that I have, let's see if I can do better with the clicker than I did with the mic.Yeah, okay, great. So I have just a couple of slides. I'll just speak for 5 minutes or so on this. So there's both good news and bad news on the climate finance story. And we heard about that in the presentation of the tracker this morning. So the good news is that the climate flows are substantial, around $1.4 trillion. This also aligns with what we were hearing in the climate finance tracker.But now the not so good news, which is very interesting. Only about 14% of that reaches developing countries, excluding China. Even though these countries represent about a quarter of global GDP and about 40% of global emissions. So clearly there's a significant gap that we need to address, and that's also an opportunity. There we go. Okay, now for Thailand, the gap is considerable. Let me give you a preview of our upcoming country climate and development report. So this estimates that Thailand is going to need 219 billion in climate investments over the next 25 years. Again, this aligns with what we were hearing in the Climate Finance Tracker, which is good news. That's around 2.4% of cumulative GDP. Now, we were hearing this morning about the breakdown between mitigation and adaptation. And if you take this need and break it down that way, it comes out to about 115 billion for adaptation and 85 billion for mitigation. So you can see that the larger needs are in the adaptation bucket. And as we were hearing about earlier this morning, the flows at the moment are larger going into mitigation. And about 19 billion for climate smart agriculture and forestry. And also, as we were hearing this morning, that's where a lot of the investment interest is. We also know that much of the adaptation cost is going to fall on the public sector, while the private sector will play a crucial role in the mitigation. And so if we try to break this down, let me focus on two strategic priorities, or a way to think about this. Priority one is about advancing sustainable financing, and we can think about that through greening finance, meaning enhancing the financial system's ability to identify, manage, and also disclose climate-related financial flows and risks. And then the second, through financing green. So this is where we're talking about scaling up the flow of capital into climate-smart projects and technologies, and where I'm sure we'll hear a lot from our colleagues from the commercial banks. And then priority two is unlocking new sources of financing, including in the carbon markets. So let me go real quickly on each of these. Have I got it on the right? Yeah, okay. All right, so let's start with this question about advancing sustainable finance. And first on greening finance. So here we know that Thailand has made great strides on advancing sustainable finance. And actually, according to the Sustainable Banking and Finance Network, Thailand is in the implementation stage. No surprise, because we just heard about the Climate Finance Tracker this morning. And this means that there is a framework, and we're in implementation. About 2/3 of countries are in this space. But we also know that financial institutions, and we'll hear from Dr. Roong and our colleagues from the commercial banks, still face substantial information barriers. And this is exactly why we're here today talking about the Climate Finance Tracker, because this is an effort, of colleagues in government and the private sector to address this. So now what does this mean? It means inconsistent green finance definitions. So we know the Climate Finance Tracker is thinking this through. Lack of standardized methodologies for identifying green assets. Short loan tenors, typically 3 to 7 years, whereas these projects need 15 to 20 years horizon to do green infra financing. And then this still emerging use of standardized climate risk assessment methodologies. Now, why does this matter? It's because it raises the cost of capital, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about this. So when you have heightened uncertainty that limits capital recycling, it also exacerbates the risk of greenwashing, which again is one of the things the Climate Finance Tracker is also working to help with. Now, Thailand has been addressing this also through important initiatives that includes the Thailand taxonomy, enhanced disclosure frameworks, like really leading edge stuff, and platforms. But going forward, we know we need new tools. So green securitization frameworks, longer tenor instruments, and also standardized credit enhancements. So if you're in business, you actually think to yourself, hey, if I have two choices, I'm going to make the choice and put my investment into the green finance. And that's where this second idea of financing green comes in, because while greening finance builds the system's ability to manage the risks, financing green is about mobilizing the resources. So Thailand's made progress through the ESG bond market. There have been very interesting bond issuances and the introduction of green loans and sustainability-linked instruments. But currently, Thailand still sees less than 1% of GDP in new sustainable debt annually. So there is space to do more. Now, how do you accelerate this? This is where we need bankable projects, right? So people will have projects, businesses will have projects. They can come to my colleagues here on my left and actually have a bankable project that can be financed, particularly in the industries that matter for the green sector, so clean energy, resilient infrastructure, and industry. Now this is where we come to the second priority, and this will be my last real point, that we can also unlock new sources of financing, sustainable financing, through carbon pricing and international carbon markets. And here again, Thailand, both in the government and in the private sector, is doing quite a lot of thinking and has a great history for being one of the first countries to actually issue carbon credits on the international market. Now, why does this matter? Carbon pricing is another powerful tool in the toolbox to mobilize climate finance. It places a cost on emissions to drive the investments towards the greener sources of growth. And so we're supporting Thailand in all three aspects of the carbon markets. So carbon taxes, emission trading systems, and also carbon crediting mechanisms. So let me very briefly walk through these three. So while carbon pricing internalizes the environmental costs of emissions and generates revenues, climate finance plays a complementary role. So it helps fill the funding gaps, and it de-risks investments to make the low carbon solutions, again, more bankable. One of the things we're working on in the carbon markets is the Low Carbon City and Carbon Market Development Program. So carbon markets represent a fast-growing and vital stream of climate finance. The voluntary carbon market is worth $2 billion in 2022. It's going to grow to $20 billion in 2030. And $200 billion by 2050. So there's a huge opportunity here. But small and medium firms, particularly, not just small firms, but also medium corporates, often lack the resources to access this market. So we're working with Thailand to provide end-to-end support, both from carbon footprint measurement and credit monetization. This will help firms unlock this stream of revenue. And so we're working with the Ministry of Finance, Department of Climate Change, Stock Exchange, Central Bank, and others on this program. It will let cities and businesses invest in emissions-reducing infrastructure by helping them aggregate smaller projects, monetize it, and go to the markets. And early market sounding suggests that international buyers would actually pay between $10 and $20 per ton. And so by bundling this together, we can unlock up to $1.5 billion. So that's just another source of funding as we think through tracking how we green finance. So let me conclude with that. That's the overview of kind of where we see Thailand now. And just say again, this is the perfect moment to be talking about this, and the fact that we have the Climate Finance Tracker, which is one of our good sources for data for change. So thanks very much.
Well, Melinda, I've got another question. Of course, we have the ultimate goal to achieve, which means what has been discussed in the Paris Agreement 10 years ago, 2015. But Thailand alone sometimes might not be able to achieve that alone. We need collaboration, and how can the support from multilateral and multinational organizations, including investors, will come and support Thailand?
Yeah. So I think this is exactly the purpose of this conference today, right? And why we have the Climate Finance Tracker also, because we've got to get access to that private sector flows of financing, right? It will not be possible for Thailand to finance everything that's needed on either mitigation or adaptation completely out of the budget. No country can do that. And actually, Thailand shouldn't need to do that. I mean, I'm sure you'll talk about this as well, right? What we need is to have continue to scale up the framework that makes it clear to investors why there's a push into the green finance sector, right? How can government help create the framework, which today is part of, to de-risk private investment at scale? That's really the key.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, today we are very honored to have here with us the representative from Central Bank, who is more or less the facilitator as well as the regulator for this attempt as well. So, Dr. Roong, well, can you give us the overview of how far has Thailand been doing, and of course, within the provided regulatory framework in which we want to push forward the attempt to mitigate the climate?
Well, first of all, let me thank Kun Yui and her team for inviting me here, because we don't want banks to just be on the only ones talking. They have to listen to regulators as well and see our point of view. Okay, and secondly, I have just one slide, only because I was told that the others have a lot of slides.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I just, my slides are just there as a placeholder. Okay, so you can listen to me and, okay, basically, I think our role in terms of the Bank of Thailand, we would like to provide some building blocks that Melinda has already talked about, taxonomy, risk frameworks, and things like that. I think we have been working on that for a number of years. However, progress has been made, but perhaps not as fast as we would like to see. So yeah. But anyhow, for us, since we are regulators of banks, we would like to make sure that banks play an active role in helping to finance this climate-related and sustainability projects. However, with that, we're going to talk about the regulations and a little later. However, we have seen banks have made progress on I think two key areas. One is that they have already incorporated climate-related issues and considerations into their business on an ongoing manner. We have seen definitely increasing commitment in terms of targets that they set, and you'll hear the Green Bank and the Purple Bank kind of like tell you what they have been doing. So that's good. At least they have upped their commitments on an annual basis, and we do track that. And I think the more important part is that the tone from the top, from each institutions, are much clearer now. They have set up committees that oversee this, so that is something that we want to see and make sure that commitment comes from the top and not just projects-wise. Thirdly, they have been incorporating climate-related aspects like risk model, but it's an ongoing effort. Okay, we have done some stress testing with them, but it's not complete. So it's still in a learning by doing and learning process for that. And also, I think in terms of information disclosure, we have seen a better job with that. However, these are like building blocks, but for us, they're not necessarily tangible in terms of making real progress on the ground. So what we have been doing with them was that, okay, we need to work on real projects and real lending. Okay, so we have been initiating with them what we call Financing the Transition program last year, starting last year, covering this year as well, with 100 billion baht target for 2 years in terms of financing special projects, which is up to them what they want to finance, but each individual bank and participating banks would be the main banks, and maybe optional for smaller banks. So they have been doing work on that. We have seen, but also I would like to share like challenges that we face along the way. Okay, first of all, they set the target of, as I said, $100 billion. No, not dollar. Sorry, baht. The numbers are going to be reached. However, we see gaps. They're not necessarily going to SMEs, okay? And we know that the biggest gaps in Thailand's, going from brown to less brown to eventually green is probably in the lagging sector of SMEs. So that's why we worry. And also with the trade negotiation, tariff issues, smaller operators, smaller businesses are gonna suffer even more. So on top of green, on top of this sustainability, they have other aspects to adjust to as well. So we want to make sure that money goes to the right people who really need it. Okay, but we do see challenges. First of all, for small businesses, their mindset is still an impediment. A lot of times they're already struggling very hard and they ask, why do they need to do sustainability on top of everything else? Okay, so that is also important that we bring them along. That's why we see that perhaps big firms who have these smaller firms in their supply chain could probably do more in terms of bringing them along into this recognition of why they need to adapt. Secondly, as we work with banks, they do lend. But, I would have to say, sometimes when you ask them for transformational loans, new technology, we do face that sometimes banks, they don't know those technology. You have like loan officers. When you go to loan officers, how can you be so sure they understand this green technology? And it's understandable they're, they need to worry about credit risk. If they don't understand the new technology, how could they lend? And that, I think, is another impediment that you have to bring banks along as well. So there's also knowledge gaps in terms of lenders as well, okay? So I think in terms of limited capability, it's not only on the manufacturers or the firms, but also on lenders. Thirdly, I think the support system in Thailand is still fragmented. They're pushed here and there, we do something, the government is doing something, but it may not be a very cohesive effort. So I think that we need to work on that. We talk about data being fragmented. Yes, our effort is also fragmented. And I think in that sense, we need to do a better job in creating incentives for firms to adapt, creating incentives for banks to provide finances, and other parts of even big firms and things like that, okay? But Dr. Wit, you were asking about the regulatory landscape.
Correct. Because I wish to know how far has it been supporting to this particular context and whether or not it has been positively responded by financial lenders and so on.
Okay. I think one thing that has to be made clear, first of all, is that when we regulate banks, one very clear thing is that we don't want banks to be competing with the real sector in doing business, real sector business. So if banks is gonna do some EV stations, no. Okay? No. I know some banks wanted that. Okay? So, but however, so that's why we have been a bit strict, and I'm sure there are gonna be requests from this forum. But I think that is our fundamental thinking, that banks, because they have cheap funding from depositors, we don't want them to leverage on that cheap funding in terms of direct competition. However, they can have a facilitating role. So far, we have been expanding, allowing them to do more facilitative work, okay? Aggregation of data, so things like that we're gonna allow, and we're gonna allow more. Okay, that I can promise. We're going to allow more. However, we will not allow, I don't think, direct competition. So I want to make that clear. Okay, but however, we are exploring things like our regulatory sandbox. They can come in and do. However, the role will be limited, somewhat limited to still, like data aggregation, knowledge, whatever. Yeah, tokenization is okay, market support, things like that.
Well, wonderful. Thank you very much for a very clear and well-structured answer, as always, from Dr. Roong. Big round of applause. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Next question from the two bankers, whether or not you will develop EV charging station. I mean, it's clear from the regulator. By the way, Dr. Karin, first of all, I mean, in formulating a strategy from the bank is hard enough. And now you have the climate mitigation finance coming into this. How have you react to this? I mean, the integration of climate mitigation finance in the banking overall strategy so far? This is sharing economy. Huh?
Okay, thank you so much for the questions. I think for these questions, there will be a link between the Thailand's climate directions and also bank strategy. How can we map the two together? From this, I would like to get a little background on Thai NDC, National Defined Contributions. I think to this year, I have talked with the climate department of the Ministry of Environment, and then they will have the new release of, they call the Thai NDC 3.0.
Excuse me, can I ask what is NDC?
It's just like for each countries in the COP meetings, we have to declare how much carbon reduction we're going to achieve.
Okay.
The roadmap of Thailand. And what we have seen is that from NDC 2.0 or 2.0, we have the target net zero of 2065. Yeah.
2065.
65.
40 years from now, I think.
And then for Thailand NDC 3.0, it seems that the net zero will be 2050. So it's 15 years shorter or sooner. And because of that, it means that there will be a lot of pressure to transitions. And then Melinda have talked that they expect that $200 billion for transitions, but that I think is under NDC 2.0. Under NDC 3.0, I think it will be about 3 to 4 times more financing need for Thailand. I think that is the background how can the Thailand or Thai industry should adopt. And then there will be some key industry below, like energy, transportation, industry, agriculture. These are the target industry that need to have like big transitions for the next few years. We estimate that in the next 5 to 7 years, Thailand need about 15 trillion Thai bahts for financing. Next, how can we as a player bankers adapt to this, I think, sooner target? It means that for Thailand on the left, we have to reduce carbon by about 30% by 2035, in like 10 years. And then from regulators, Bank of Thailand have released Thailand taxonomies and then have released the standard practice on that. And for us, we incorporate the target. We incorporate the foundations that Bank of Thailand have laid out into our climate strategy. We call it 3+1 and C. 3 means the first one, objective one, is our own operation. We have been reducing our carbon emission of our own for many years. And then we emit carbon about 80,000 tons per year. 80,000 tons per year. And then it has been reducing by about 5-10% many years. Secondly, is the transition that Roong have talked about, is the brown to less brown. That is our second objective. How can we help customers to reduce their carbon emission? Because from Paris Agreement, what happened is that banks should not just looking at our own carbon emission of 80,000. We have to incorporate the scope 3. And that is about another 500 times more. It's about 40 million tons, almost equivalent to the carbon emission of Switzerland as a whole country for KBank. So we have to help our customers as well. That is objective number 2, brown to less brown. And the objective number 3 is promoting green loans. So this is for the new lending of the green transitions. +1, there are many other things that our customers need, such as knowledge, such as communities, knowledge sharing, training, and many other things that we have to help them, especially on SMEs, including tokenization of carbon credit, for example. Many innovation things that bank can do. And the last one, the last C, is capabilities. How can we increase the capability of our own staff and also customers together? So that is 3+1 and C. So from strategy to actions, we are not just here to talk about our net zero target anymore. We have, for our own operations, the first columns, we have been reducing our carbon emissions. And then from year to year, we reduced by 17% already. And then this is our own carbon emission. That's a long story about how can we reduce our waste to landfill, for example. I can talk on that for another hour. On finance portfolio, this is a big one. How can we help customers find the right technologies, find the right partners, make their own carbon emissions reduction plan from brown to red brown, and also the green project all together. I think these are our achievement. And then on this we have lent so far until last year is about like 150 billion Thai bahts. And this including not only just about loan, is about buying investment product, green bond as well. Think about this, KBank, our bank, when I was a treasurer since 2018, we are the first bank in Southeast Asia that issued dollar sustainability bonds in this country, in this region actually, since 2018, the first bank. Why we did that? Because we want to make sure that we understand the process. We do it ourselves, and then we can help the customer issue green bonds, social bonds, sustainability bonds. And you can see the number that since 2019 to 20, the number skyrocket. And now I think, if I remember correctly, in these Southeast Asia regions, the green bonds, social bonds incorporate together. Thailand is number one in the region. That because part of that is because we, our bank, we learn it ourselves. We issue the bond ourselves. Then we help customer issue the bond, and we buy their bonds as well. So it's a full loop of capital market mechanism as well. That is what we have done on the finance portfolio. So it's just not just lending, it's also about the capital market flow. And then I think we get to the second questions on
your experience on how to mobilize climate mitigation finance.
And then this is the second one that we have just talked about, the financing. It's the point that customers know what they want to do. They just need money to do it. But it's not enough. We have seen that even though we have lent, I think toward this year end, it's maybe about 170 billions to 190 billions. But what we have learned so far is lending to large corporate customers on the left. They know exactly what to do. They find the right technologies, and they have opportunity to tap the bond markets. So that is the left. On the right, on the SMEs, this is another challenging knowledge gap. Talk about supply chain, talk about industry specific. And that's why Dr. Roong have mentioned last year, Bank of Thailand pushed us, and we also have the package of green transition or transition finance for 4 sectors. We have, I would say, a specific, lending package for food and beverage, for hotels, for packaging, and for automobile parts. So we have specific, lending package for each industry, so that they can have, it's just like if you buy a set of things, it's cheaper, better financing, I was saying that. And also it's tailor-made for their specific industry. And that's what we have done to help the SMEs. What in their mind is actually not a straight line like, okay, I need money, I ask for the bank. It's like this. They have to balance many things. The first on the left is the balance of values, whether that the greener operation, the greener products create marginal value to customer, the customer willingness to pay more or not. Balance with the return to shareholders, stakeholders. And also that another 2 obstacle is the availability of technologies, the ease of transitions. So they have to balance many things before they get to the last question on whether the bank gonna lend them or not and at what interest rate. This is the thing that we have to attack or help them to get this clearer picture of what are the obstacles, what are the trade-offs, and what is the right technology or transition path to them. Lastly, on this question is about our own challenge with customers. For KBank specific, we may be different than the other. On the first one is the large corporate. For large corporate, we have a diversified large corporate. Unlike some banks that for their large corporate portfolio, they have just some few sectors. For us, we have a very diversified large corporate lending portfolio. Because of that, we have to make many sector-specific guide paths. It means that we have to have like the carbon emission reduction guide path for each sectors in details, and then we tag that with the lending portfolios mapped together to see each year whether we achieve the lending target on that portfolio or not. For us, again, we are number one in SME lending, and because of large SME lending, it means that we have to create many other more solutions to the SMEs more than just waiting for them to request for the loan. And then we have been talking and requesting from Thailand a lot of permissions to find or to develop the right tools, the right data or whatever to help the SMEs. That is the second one. And then the last one, I think this one, many banks have seen that is the dilemma between greener versus more profitabilities. And then what happened is that we, inside the bank, or the unit that looking at this sustainability unit, we have to do our own research to prove that actually the greener, the first adopter on this type of journeys, has less credit risk than a typical corporate. Even though it's not quite concrete, but we have numbers. Finally, we have to get approval internally to have what we call the strategic subsidies. It means that, for example, this loan application get in, the IMs looking at that and say, okay, it's a good project, but this is the credit margin that we have to buffer against the credit cost. The customer say, I want thinner margin. How can we solve that? This strategic subsidies saying that, okay, actually there's a relationship between greener and lower credit costs, even though it's not proven, but we have done some study. And then we ask for that so that we compensate the business unit so that they can proceed on. We have internal, I would say, right of approval to see what type of greens and how far, how much we can approve these subsidies. Because at the end, if things as planned, we will not just only getting greener lending portfolios, but also less credit cost portfolio as well. So that is another internal mechanisms such that we can mitigate or move this. And then this is not just about the interest rate pricing alone. We also have just incorporated the internal carbon credit cost internally for each line of business. If you do whatever things, there is a charge cost on carbon emission internally, so that this market mechanism internally can work as well. So these are the things that we have to change internally to trade off between green and profitability.
Well, that sounds complicating, but for the sake of a much better world. So there is no shortcut for that. I like that multifold equilibrium, the ability to balance in a multifolding way. Thank you very much. Well, now, for SCB, Dr. Yunyong, I think that more or less the same. Of course, the climate concerns seem to be additional factors in your equation of how the bank calculate their risk and at the same time strategic planning. How is the SCB approach to that new equation where climate concern is integrated into that equation? This is the most complicating part. Managing microphones.
Good morning. Thank you for CFNT to inviting me to this important conference. I think the question that I was assigned to first is whether have we seen any trend that probably could raise some concern on the momentum on the mitigation of the climate change risk. And I would say that at the global level, we have seen both headwinds and tailwinds. I mean, the climate change challenges is inherently is a public goods, right? So everyone can enjoy the world with low or without global warming, but not everyone have to pay, right? So we are facing with a free rider problem. So that's why we need, to address these challenges, whether at the global level or national level, we need some sort of coordination. And we have seen both headwinds and tailwinds, right? Headwinds For example, you have heard, like, the President Trump decided to leave the Paris Agreement and cut off funding on the R&D on climate change and decided to pump up more fossil fuel. At the same time, you heard that many global banks, especially in the US, also decided to leave NZBA, the Net Zero Banking Alliance. So that could lead to some loss of short-term momentum on our efforts. But at the same time, though, we also seen some tailwinds, like the body standard, body that's setting the international standard. For example, like NZBA become more flexible, more pragmatic on their approaches that could help many banks, many stakeholders to still stay along this path. Or also in terms of regulatory push, we have seen more concerted effort both at the global level and as well as the on domestic level. Bank of Thailand just issued the phase 2 of taxonomy. The SEC will adopted the IFRS standard and will require that all set 50 companies have to follow next year. Right. So there are good momentum, but I think the bottom line that I like to highlight is that we should stay the course. We talk about the tariff, right? So now many countries say, oh, maybe we still should follow globalization -1, right? Minus the US. Same thing for this climate change. We believe that we should stay the course. The world, need for the concerted effort on climate change strategy, and certainly Thailand cannot afford to be a high carbon economy in the low carbon world, right? We're gonna suffer in terms of the loss of competitiveness. Now, as for SCB, we have a strong commitment on climate change target. We are the first and remain the only bank in Thailand that adopted and that become member of SBTi, both for our own operation, scope 1 and scope 2, so that we're gonna go net zero by 2030. But more important, more difficult, more challenging is the scope 3, the finance emission. So the target is 2050, right? And we adopted the SBTi framework because we want the framework that are science-based, transparent, verifiable. Okay, so that the first 2 targets that we committed to. I also would like to mention that we also, I think the first Thai bank that become the member of Equator Principles. For some of you who might not be familiar with this, basically Equator Principles is a club, banking club that, or the club that become a member committed for their large project financing, that we will adhere to the highest international standard in terms of the environmental and social impact. So many of our clients early on when we committed to this standard, many of them say it lead to higher costs, right? But subsequently in hindsight, all of them say it was a good decision to commit to this high standard because it's provide them with the international the best practice and help them to guard against any risk that coming in, right? In terms of because of the demand on environmental and social is increasing all the time. And the last target I want to mention that we committed sizable finance of 150 billion baht starting from 2023 to 2025. I'll report you the latest number later on. I'll pass this quickly. I mean, this is scope 1 and scope 2, so many organizations in Thailand is doing this. But more important, more challenging is our scope 3. So I'm just share you the number from SCB. For scope 1 and scope 2, it's only like 70,000 tons of carbon we release. But for scope 3, in our lending portfolio is around 6.7 million tons. So that's 100 times, so much challenging. And most of them, about half from power sector. So, and the rest are from the other sector combined. SBTI require different approach to this. The first one is the power sector. They require what we call SDA, right? Basic sectoral decarbonization accounting. So we basically measure carbon intensity in the power project that we lend to, right? The easy way to understand this, if we lend to coal, so carbon intensity will be really high, right? Natural gas will be intermediate level. If we lend to renewable, that's almost zero carbon, right? So fortunately for SCB, we have always been the leading bank for renewable. Right now, our renewable energy share in our power port is about 59%, which is quite high and much higher than the share of renewable in the Thai electricity portfolio, right? Which is about 20% only. So, and on the right-hand side, you can see the light line. That is the reference part that we have to commit to under SBTI. The dark purple line is so far up until 2024. So far we remain below the part. But going forward, it's going to be much more challenging. Right. So, I mean, the lever we use is basically, yes, lend more to renewable. We also adopt no coal policy, so we no longer lend to any new or expansion of existing coal project. Okay. The second approach is ITR, or temperature rise, implied temperature rise. The easy way to explain to you guys is that SBTI dictate that our clients, if they don't have any carbon reduction commitment, the contribution of our lending to them is going to be 3.2 degree Celsius, right? So that's very, very warm, very high. If our client sets some target, then the temperature will be lower. So that's the idea. So basically, our goal, our strategy is engage with our client, persuade them to set target, right? So that's the key, and then we provide support to them, right? I mean, for those who set target. On the middle part, I just want to share you, this is the recent survey. Early this year, we surveyed the top 220 clients of our portfolio. So the first graph is in terms of number of our clients, right? The second graph is outstanding loan. So about 30% of our firm, equivalent to 48% of the total loan in our port here, they already commit and announce, commit the target and announce and in line with SBTI. But if you look at the lower part, up until 50% of large corporations still don't have any data collection, so I have no plan. So in terms of commit to, so even for the large corporation, so this problem is not only for SME. For large corporation, there's also a lot of diversity in terms, so we need to work with our client. On the right-hand side, so the ITR temperature right now is still on track, but again, going forward will be much challenging because of the reference line you see is coming down all the time. So our approach, if we ask what are common challenge we face, there are three factors, right? One is lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. Two, lack of funding, affordability. Especially this period of time, a lot of uncertainty, the economy slowed down, so this decision between investing in sustainability or not right now is become very serious consideration. And thirdly, as Dr. Roong said, technical solution is important. And so our approach is, first, we have to work, engage with client. We provide knowledge sharing, not only by ourselves, but by our partners, right? Secondly, financial solution, similar to what Dr. Karin mentioned, we provide incentivized solution. We provide extra interest rate. we call the what is sustainability linked loan. So basically, if the customer commit to some sustainability goal and they achieve it, we will lower interest rate for them. So it's win-win, right? And thirdly, we need to work with our partner to create ecosystem to provide support to our clients. Just briefly on this chart, I just want to mention that we also conducted 5 sectoral decarbonization strategy: power sector, fossil fuel, commercial real estate, petrochemical, and automobile. So those are the 5 sectors we work in the first phase. Just quickly, this chart just to share with you, Dr. Roong mentioned about the financing the transition project for SCB. We chose the hospitality sector, and I'm not going to go into the detail, but even in the hotel industry, there are so diversity in terms of the readiness and the understanding. So we provide products and support that tailor to customer need. Many hotel operators are not ready to go to green building certificate. We help them to upgrade their sustainability practice, right? Maybe without any need new investment, but more like a knowledge, technical solution. But to the right, we do provide funding for green certificate. So that's like international level. So just want to see that the approach has to be holistic. Okay. So lastly, for all of that, I mentioned about the sustainable finance target. So far, up until from 2023 to first half of 2025, we surpassed the 150 billion baht target. We reached 180 billion already, and the 4 sectors that we extend the most loan to pretty much follow our sectoral strategy, right? The most is in CRE, followed by renewable energy, EV, and then chemical. So that's our experience so far.
Well, thank you very much. This is the first time that I see the purple bank turns green. We have 2 green banks today. By the way, actually we have got another 16 minutes here. If all of you are given one magic power in order to change one thing in financial ecosystem, in order to unlock the transformative investment in climate mitigation, what will be your pick of that instant magic? Shall I start with one of the ladies? Which of you would volunteer?
You could go ahead, Melinda.
The one who look greenest on the stage should be the one.
Oh, but now I have the mic problem again. Got it. Now I got it.
Wonderful.
I can't say no to Dr. Roong. Okay, if I could do one thing, let me turn it back into a question. Why do you think China has such a disproportionate share of the climate finance flows? Why? So you can think of 3 things. Scale. China's big. Okay, we may think Thailand can't compete on scale, but actually in this region, Thailand is very big, right? Another one is policy direction. It's super clear to companies what they can and cannot do. A little bit like Dr. Roong was being super clear. No to this, yes to that. And another is institutional readiness. So if I were going to pick one thing for Thailand to do, it would really be to focus on creating this enabling environment for de-risking private sector investment at scale. So that means money, what we've been talking about with the green loans, what we heard the examples of, also carbon finance and green bonds. But it also means innovation. And so that's the piece we haven't spent as much time talking on because we're all bankers, but also creating the environment for innovation, to have the new technologies to expand them. So that would be my one thing.
Thank you very much. Environment for innovation. Dr. Ring, what will be your magic spell?
Can I listen to banks first? Because just in case their wish has something to do with what I'm doing. Yes.
Okay. Then later have the last word.
Okay. First off, the green bank.
So maybe from KBank first. Before we talk about the magic word, think about what we have done first, so that we can see the next. And as The theme of today is taking stock and looking forward. So let's taking stock first. Can someone put up on the slide, please, for KBank?
Oh, เจอไหม
Okay. This is what we have done on top of the financing. We call the beyond banking solutions. Think about this. Kun Yunyong had talked about the impact and road. Internally, we're saying that for these climate transitions, maybe it's just delay because of the US, but it will not be derailed. It will be on this track. And then our customers see this as well. We have example of one of our customers. He is in the printing industry. Think about packaging printing. Has been disrupted by the cheap cost of printing material from the China. They can print everything and ship to Thailand. How can you survive that? And finally, he has seen this by all of the beyond banking solution that we have provided. The first is the Creative Climate Research Center. We do the research, and then we also provide training course for executive. And then he, in part joining with the Chulalongkorn University, he get into the class and he understand this changing, and he tests by talking to customer and he see increased requirement on carbon emission tracking of the packaging or printing. So there's demand there that he can command better margin, even though the sale may be shrink, but the margin can be improved. So he get the knowledge. Second, he use our advisory service. And then part of that is the person who doing that is here. So he's saying that, okay, I want to transform my company. Can the bank help me? So we have advisory service to help them understand, get the numbers done. Third, we have the K-Climate 1.5, which is carbon emission tracking platforms or data management systems. So it's just like if you want to lose weight, the first thing you have to do is to find the scale, right? To see how much weight you have. So they want the scale. So luckily, all these activities, Bank of Thailand allow bank to do so. So we have the training course, we have the advisory service, and we have the carbon emission tracking platform now. It's one of the first few platforms certified by TGO or Thai Greenhouse Gas in Thailand. So we are one of the first few platforms there. So that customers now can transform, get carbon emission numbers correct, and then now finding the right technologies and is about to asking for the lending support. So you see that the journey of SMEs is not starting from talking about I need money. It's starting from understanding, advisories, tools or solutions, and then money is the last one. It's for SME. That is why we have all these solutions together on the far right of the pictures. Can be the climate solution, can be the carbon ecosystems, something like that. And this is what I think we and Bank of Thailand have been working together for the last many years. And one last request that according to the question is collaborations. We think this is very important. It can be the collaboration between regulators and players. How can we create environment that help not just the customer transitions, but help the bank who are intermediaries transition as well? There are many tools there. It can be like expanding the scope of business so that we can support the customer more. Can be some policy incentive for bank balance sheet to lend more, to be able to lend more, something like that. And also is a collaboration with, I think, players to define standards. We have the taxonomies, but it has to be done in detail of each industries. We also part of the creation of Thai CBN, Thai Climate Business Network. In this Thai CBN announced in the Earth Jump last year, Jump conference, we have not just KBank, we have many banks in there. We have IFCs, we have city banks and charters, we have real sectors, we have universities, we have government sectors, all together. And then this year, just last few months, we published a white paper submit to the governments on how to transition Thailand, especially on SMEs. We have the handbook for the SMEs So that if they would like to transition, what are the things to do? It's just like guidebook saying that for the SME. So this is the result of the work by the consortium called the Thai CBN. And lastly, we need collaboration on data and tools, similar to what you have seen in the first sectors, that data has to be, I would say, integrated. People can see and can, I would say, reverse checking, can see the direction of the money and the flow, something like that. Data and tools are also part of that. So altogether, I think collaboration is the key for the next move.
Collaboration. I think that your message to the central bank is heard.
But he skipped the second point. Policy, whatever request, he skipped it totally.
So when we are down on the stage, you both can discuss and we can observe. Well, before I go to Dr. Yunyong, may I remind you again that we have got another, I think, 10-15 minutes for the questions from the floor. Should there be any inquiry from all of you, the audience from the floor, you can key in your questions and then you will select as far as time allows, and your questions will be answered by one of the 4 panelists in the end. Well, save the best for the last. Dr. Yunyong.
Thank you, Kap. I think the keyword is collaboration. So if I can have the slide. So my proposal focusing on the financial sector ecosystem, right? So I see the example in Singapore. They have what's so-called Singapore Sustainable Finance Association, FSSC. So they bring in key stakeholders in the financial sector, as well as regulator, and also some key representative from real sectors, right? Because as Dr. Roong said, there are many areas that we still have gap. And so I believe that for Thai financial system is rather fragmented, both in terms of the regulators and also in terms of the players. So I think having coordinating body should help, and the focus could be on the 4 fronts, right? 4 areas. One is it should be a collaboration platform with alignment with all the regulators, right? So this is important. But the second one is on innovation ecosystem, just like what Melinda was mentioning. Certainly, Thailand cannot rely on public funding for climate-related ambition, right? Because as we know, in terms of the constraint on the public fiscal room right now, so it's very important for us to cloud in private investment. So as Melinda said, that the de-risking, credit guarantee, credit enhancement, some blended finance is going to be very crucial for Thailand. And so we need to have some sort of platform to so we can come and work together to generate this innovation. And third, as Dr. Roong said, we still have gap on in terms of the capacity building, talent development. It would be great if we, as a sector, come together and develop talent in this area. So my proposal is, let's have a coordinating body for financial sector in Thailand.
Wonderful.
Yes, and my wish, originally, I was going to say, to change the mindset so that we can collaborate and things like that and have a total solution. But since the others have already mentioned that, I'll be a little modest. I think, as today we're talking about the Green Finance Tracker, I think data is something that's going to unlock some of the impediments that we have. Yes, Dr. Karin skipped the whole part about regulatory requests, but I did see from his small point there, things like credit risk weight. Those are the things that if you want the regulator to consider, you would have to unlock the connection between greener being less risky. You see, that is, and only data could help. There's there's 1 or 2 central banks who have gone into lowering some risk weight asset calculation for greener loans, but that is very, very few. And for a small country like Thailand to deviate from international standard, I think the cost benefit may not be justified. Okay? So, however, if Dr. Karin or Dr. Yunyong can share with us that you have clear evidence of being greener also means better credit risks, I think we're more than willing to investigate and to consider, and even to bring it to the international arena, and and do some push on that front. So I think data is something that is going to be important for us. So data makes Dr. Karin makes this, can offer solutions. Dr. Yunyong can offer solutions to customers. They can do their jobs better. It will also make my job, so I can do my job better also. So I think if you can share back that would be great. Thank you.
Well, wonderful. That's why climate tracking is important. Data is a magic key to unlock the potential. Of course, let's not forget collaboration, coordination, as well as environment to promote innovation as well. So big round of applause for not having overused the time. We stick to our commitment. Great contribution. Great contribution. Anyway, we are not only 5 people on the stage. I think that we have many questions from the floor waiting to be answered upon here. Can anyone show us what are questions? Are there any? If there's no questions, that means we are absolutely clear. We are crystal clear, and no one have any question. There's somebody raising his hand back there. And second question right in front here. Okay. The microphone is so far apart. Physically demanding indeed.
Hi, I am a student. I am a German language student. So my question is about at the Thailand we have a new governor of Bank of Thailand. How will the new appointed governor of Bank of Thailand we have additional policy on the green financial in Thailand? Thank you.
We need to wait for the cabinet approval.
Exactly. I think you have to wait for that one. Yes.
And I think that it is scheduled to be tomorrow. So watch the Standard Wealth, Morning Wealth, and you will be able to get that answer. Well, second question, I think the gentleman right in front here in his tidy beige suit.
Thank you for a fascinating discussion. I'm Leo Honparanatai from the Just Transitions Incubator, and I have 2 questions, if I may. First question is about the role of nature. Nature is a key ally in mitigation and adaptation efforts, yet it wasn't mentioned by any of the panelists. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to address the nature dimension and efforts that may be underway, or you're thinking about nature-related disclosures and putting nature on the balance sheet. Second question is about the regional dimension and whether any efforts are underway to ensure that the green financing rules and the taxonomies are done in a way as to ensure some interoperability or harmonization with other countries in the region. And this speaks to the point that was raised about international flows and carbon markets, and that could be a very important underpinning of unleashing regional financing agreements. So wanted to hear your thoughts on how efforts to harmonize with other green finance rules and standards in the region.
Who is gonna take that question? Dr.
I'll take the second question, yes,
Yeah,
which is easier. Yes, we have made sure that in order to have our green standard, the local green standard, it has to be in line with international standards so that we won't have redundancy, so that there will not be additional costs the private sector. So yes, in doing the taxonomy, for example, we make sure that we talk to the ASEAN body, and we try to keep as much in line as possible. Yes, but within our context, but definitely, yes, that we're well aware of that.
Could Melinda, perhaps? Who are going to take the first question?
Great. I did it faster this time. I'm getting better at the end. No, thanks, Leo. So you're right about nature-based solutions. And actually, I think having that be part of what we all talk about when we're talking about the different structuring of the financing instruments is important because, and I think one of the reasons you're raising it is it's a different way of thinking about investment. So a nature-based solution is also can often mean a different technology and a different innovation. I think it's early days on how these are accounted for, but we're seeing some nature-based, nature-linked bonds coming out. So this is where, just coming back to the data point, the fact that we have this tracker now, the fact that there are these regional exchanges will be important, but noted on this. I think it's worth making sure it's part of all the discussion.
Thank you. I've got 3 questions from the system here. The first question is for the 2 gentlemen up here. How to submit green loan for negative emission technology? Which of you will take this question first? How to submit green loan for negative emission technology?
I think the easiest one is to contact the IM.
Yeah.
And then the IM will get internet, because think of this, when we talk about green loans, there are 2 parts, right? First is about loans. So there will be an IMs to looking at your balance sheet, your business model. First is that the business has to be viable. We have seen a lot of technologies that create the products that cannot create marginal values. The customer, the end customers are not willing to pay. So they may pay the same price. And you increase extra cost of technology. At the end, it's not viable. I'm not saying that we are not supporting it, but maybe you need more time. Maybe you need to find another technologies. Maybe you need to find another thing. So it's not just about technology, it's about loan first. So the credit worthiness has to be okay first. Then there will be another team inside the bank, and actually my team. So looking at that, you guys are whether that technologies can make it brown to less brown or make it greens or whatever level of carbon emissions. We will take care of that. We will looking at that and see once the business is viable on that greens, how can we help? Remember our internal subsidies? How can our internal subsidy can help or not on that particular case? That is another thing. But that will be two parts together. But for a bank, I would say that the credit worthiness is actually more important than what technology it is. We would have to make sure that it creates the values that the society, the customer really want and willing to pay.
Yeah. Wow, wonderful credit worthiness. Or you can simply tell that I know Dr. Karin. You go to see one of the RM. Well, Dr. Yunyong, are there anything to add from STB point of view?
Yeah, I think similar to Dr. Karin, but we open to listen to new idea, new innovation, because I think we have quite a network of both partner and our clients, right? So we can consider the use case of these new ideas and see whether it's feasible, right? But of course, I think as times go by with regulation become more conducive, more facilitating, right? You know, in terms of the pricing of carbon, and so this new technology will be more and more viable. But please come to talk to us. You know, we have a page on our website on sustainability with link to the relevant RM. So please, thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got this question for Dr. Roong. Since you mentioned about the data, the question is here. What do you see the role of new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, in supporting the data collection and closing gap on data for green investment? And who should take the leading role, Bank of Thailand or who else?
That's actually a very tough question. Yes, I think artificial intelligence and technology can help us digest data. However, I think we have to first start with standardized data and data on the same platform. If you want to use technology, it has to be available and accessible to that technological upgrade of some of analysis and things like that. For Bank of Thailand, I think we're willing to be part of, but our mission is already very large, and yes, and I think it has to be based on the collaborative effort, and it's actually bigger than our own mission, but we're willing to be part of it. And you may have to wait for the new governor to answer that question also.
I think so. By the way, if you use new technology, be aware that you need to use clean energy. Otherwise, AI is nothing in this particular context. If you don't make the world a better place. Well, finally, I mean, it has to come to an end. I've got the last question from Kun Melinda. How to integrate global fund to Thailand through the financial institutes, for example, the Green Climate Fund?
That's a good question, and now it died.
Okay, sharing economy.
Collaboration.
Collaboration.
There we go. It was on. Sorry. Hello? Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, this is a great last question, and it ties back to sort of the final slide in the presentation this morning on the climate tracker, which was showing that Thailand is actually accessing a disproportionately small portion of these global climate funds. And so I think part of what we were talking about earlier with having a clear policy framework actually will help both the public sector and the private sector make a better case for accessing these funds. Thailand is in that position as an upper middle income country where it's not an obvious ask, right? This is actually a pretty tricky place to be as an upper middle income country because it's not the obvious needs of the poor countries, but also Thailand does have huge needs. And that's why I do think this policy articulation is super important for this. On our side in the World Bank, this is where a significant portion of both our technical assistance and funding is available. The same with our sister organizations, the other multilateral banks in the region. We're working together on this, particularly on adaptation. We're working with ADB and with others. And so I think that part of the collaboration becomes important. Also, we have to be aware while the financial flows are growing, so we kept seeing, all of us had slides that showed the financial flows available for green finance are growing. This public sector super concessional financing is actually getting smaller. So we have to have a good story.
Thank you very much. I wish we had more time, but unfortunately the time is up, but we underspent the time, so it's a team effort. Big round of applause for 4 panelists on the stage. And before we off to lunch, I would like to invite the director of the Climate Finance Network Thailand to be on stage once more, Kun Sarini Achwa Nantakun.
ลืมไปว่าเป็น MC ค่ะ ก็ขอขอบคุณนะคะดร.รุ่งคุณเมลินดาดร.ยันยงดร.กรินและดร.วิทย์นะคะสำหรับเซสชันที่คิดว่าสนุกสนานและหลายท่านคงได้ทั้งข้อมูลและแง่คิดกลับไปไม่มากก็น้อยนะคะถ้าท่านไหนสนใจสไลด์ที่ทางวิทยากรนำเสนอเนี่ยเดี๋ยวจะได้รับทางอีเมลนะคะภายในพรุ่งนี้นะคะจากอีเมลที่ท่านได้ลงทะเบียนมานะคะแล้วก็ขอความกรุณา all the speakers please remain on stage momentarily. This would be a little bit of a token. We would like to give a token of appreciation followed by a group photo นะคะขออนุญาตขึ้น
Then followed by a group photo.
Group photo ครับ
I said you have to be together so it looks very Christmassy
That's multicolor. The world is a multicolor. Oh, the two ladies in the middle. Thank you very much. So enjoyable.
ค่ะก็จบงานในช่วงเช้าไปแล้วนะคะแต่หวังว่าทุกท่านจะอยู่กับเราจนถึงจบช่วงบ่ายนะคะเพราะว่ามีวงเสวนาที่น่าสนใจไม่แพ้กันนะคะพูดถึงเรื่องการปรับตัวนะคะต่อภาวะโลกรวนหรือว่า climate adaptation นะคะแล้วก็ช่วงนี้ก็ถึงเวลาที่หลายท่านน่าจะรอคอยก็คืออาหารกลางวันนะคะอาหารกลางวันเนี่ยจะเสิร์ฟในร้านอาหารชื่อสกาลินีนะคะก็ลงจากเราไป1ชั้นนะคะแล้วก็เราจะกลับมาในห้องนี้อีกครั้งในเวลาบ่ายโมงตรงนะคะเพื่อรับฟังวงเสวนาในหัวข้อfrom chaos to resilience นะคะจากความโอลหม่านสู่ความยืดหยุ่นซึ่งที่จริงคำนี้เนี่ยไม่ค่อยพอใจเท่าไหร่เพราะ resilience ยังไม่มีใครแปลไทยดีๆนะคะมันไม่ใช่ยืดหยุ่นเนาะมันคือล้มแล้วฟื้นและไปข้างหน้าได้อย่างรวดเร็วนะคะ co-designing climate adaptive future นะคะก็เดี๋ยวขอเชิญทุกท่านกลับมาพร้อมกันอีกทีบ่ายโมงตรงนะคะขอบคุณค่ะ